Welcome to the Verdes Foundation Cannabis 101 class. I'm Kelly Butterman, the lead cannabis educator here at the Verdes Foundation.
And I'm Rachel Spiegel. I'm the CEO and one of the registered nurses on staff. Kelly's going to get us started today, and you'll see me in just a few minutes.
We started this class to answer questions that get asked over and over again. So today we hope to dispel some of the myths behind cannabis. We're also going to teach you some of the terminology and vocabulary that you need to use. And that way when you go into the dispensaries, you won't feel as intimidated by all those strange new words. We're going to talk to you about the many benefits that cannabis has to offer for symptom relief. And we're going to talk to you about the different ways or delivery methods that you can take cannabis as medicine. I'm going to talk to you about what our CSRs, our customer service representatives, can do for you and the things that they cannot do for you in the store. And we're also going to talk a little bit about what your responsibilities are as a medical cannabis patient. Now, with all that being said, we're not here to convince you that cannabis is for you, because it is not for everybody and it's not for every condition. Our goal today is to give you some understanding and some knowledge of the plant so you can make the best choice for yourself. We have been a dispensary for 10 years here, and we have had the privilege throughout that time to serve over 20,000 patients in the New Mexico Medical Cannabis Program. We have 2 locations to serve you, our location here in Albuquerque, and we have one in Rio Rancho too. This is the biggest challenge we have in the medical cannabis field, the stigma behind cannabis. Just to give you a little background on cannabis, it's actually been used medicinally for millennia. The first written text regarding cannabis as use as medicine is 3,000 years old. It's been used all around the world for thousands of years, and in the 1800s it was actually in the pharmacopoeia of the US. Doctors readily prescribed cannabis tinctures to their patients. And then in 1937, for a lot of political reasons, it was outlawed. At that time, the American Medical Association wrote a very sternly worded letter to the US government asking them to not outlaw this plant because it had so many medicinal benefits. We're starting to learn again what our ancestors had known way back when. So our goal is to redefine how everyone thinks about cannabis, and also how they think about the people that use cannabis as medicine. I have a story to tell. I had a patient come into our Rio Rancho dispensary. She had been recommended to use medical cannabis by her doctor, and he had actually signed for her card. But it took her 2 months after she got her card to come into the store because she was afraid of all the stigma that was behind medical cannabis. But when she walked into the store, she was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't at all what she thought it was going to be. As a matter of fact, this next slide, I'm going to show you what it looks like to be a patient in a medical cannabis dispensary. It looks like this. We've got people from every walk of life, every background, every ethnicity, all sorts of age ranges who have come to cannabis as an alternative to therapies they might be using, or as an adjunct and add-on to therapies that they're currently on, say the help with chemotherapy or pain relief. So don't ever be intimidated to walk into a medical cannabis dispensary, because we're here to help you on your wellness journey. We are the only medical cannabis dispensary in the state that is co-owned by a registered nurse, so you can bet we take the education side of this very seriously. All of the customer service representatives, I like to call them cannabis educators, that work behind our counters are very well trained. It starts with our nursing staff who writes all of our training material, and then it continues. Our education never stops. So you can be assured when you come into the store, each of those people behind that counter is going to help guide you on your journey with cannabis as medicine. They're going to be there to help you with any education you need. That's another reason why we offer this Cannabis 101 class, to give you a little bit of a increase in knowledge so that you don't feel as scared when you come into the store. And there are times that we offer specific learning labs also. So say you want to learn how to use a flower vaporizer. Sometimes we offer classes in those, or we offer classes in how to use the tinctures. All you have to do is look to our newsletter to find out when we've scheduled any of these specific labs, and you can come on in and we'll teach you for free. We also offer private consultations and cannabis programs. Sometimes you want a one-to-one experience and you don't want to talk around people. We can do that for you. These are 30-minute sessions. They're always free, and they're with a trained cannabis educator that you can talk to. All you have to do is call either of our stores and you can set up an appointment to meet with them. So what are our educators going to do for you when you come into our stores? Well, they're going to help guide you on your journey with medical cannabis. They're going to teach you about the plant. They're going to teach you how it works in your body and the different onset times. They're going to help put a program together for you and get you started on it. They're going to talk to you about the typical symptom relief that you can find with cannabis. Now that's real important because cannabis is very individualized. It's different for every single person. So you can't depend on what one person says to do, because that may work great for them, but it may not do anything for you. So they're going to give you some realistic expectations when you come in. So that's where one of your responsibilities comes in. We need you to have very good, honest conversations with us. If there is a way you do not want to consume cannabis, then that's all you have to do is tell us, and we're going to find different ways to help you with that. There are certain things that the educators behind that counter can't do. We're not going to prescribe anything to you. What we write down are guidelines, and then it's up to you to do a little bit of experimentation and take your time and really try the cannabis to see how well it works for you. We always start you very, very low with a very small amount because we need to find a baseline for you, and you need to move up slowly, and that's what we call self-titrating. So we're never going to write down, take something 3 times a day and that's all we're going to do for you. We're going to start you on the journey, and then it's going to be your responsibility to experiment with it. We're never ever going to make changes to any of your prescription medications. That is between you and your doctor to do. Now sometimes you can do that by taking medical cannabis, but we want you to work with your doctor anytime you want to change your prescription medicines. We're not going to provide guidance to non-medical cannabis card holders. I really need you to have a medical cannabis card to be able to come in and talk to us, and then we can give you the information you need. And we're certainly not going to talk to you about how we can cure your condition. Despite what you read on the internet, cannabis is great for symptom relief, but it's not going to cure your condition, but it's going to be really helpful. Now when it comes to applications and renewals, we don't do those in our store. We find it a conflict of interest, but we can definitely provide you with a list of providers that we recommend that you can go to. But first of all, we really recommend that you go to your doctor and see if he'll sign for your card, because a lot of times she's going to be more than willing to sign for that card. Doctors are more and more open to this now than they have ever been in the past. And speaking of doctors, that is one thing we're never going to pretend we are. We are not doctors. We're not going to act like a physician. We're cannabis educators, and that's what we do best. And speaking of your doctor, it's really important that you keep your doctor in the loop. Most doctors, like I said earlier, are getting more on board with medical cannabis as an alternative to a lot of the conditions and symptoms that need help. So talk to your doctor, keep them in the loop. If you have any questions about your pharmaceuticals, they're the one you need to go to see if they can offer any guidance for you. Okay. Let's do some of that vocabulary now. Let's learn some terminology about the plant and a little bit about how the plant works inside of our bodies. One of the most important words you can learn when you become a medical cannabis patient is the term cannabinoid. What's a cannabinoid? Well, that's the chemical compound in the plant that provides all the symptom relief that you're looking for. So when you look on our menu boards in our store, you're going to see THC listed and CBD listed. Those are cannabinoids in the plant. They're the 2 most common cannabinoids in the plant. There are over 100 other cannabinoids that work along with THC and CBD, but they're in much smaller amounts, and we don't test for those. But they work really well in the body because they imitate compounds that we make ourselves in our body. These are called endocannabinoids, endo meaning self-made. So we have these self-made cannabinoids that the plant cannabinoids mimic, and they work in a system that's called the endocannabinoid system, and that's just a signaling system in the body. And you have receptors all throughout your body in this endocannabinoid system. And our own cannabinoids, our own endogenous cannabinoids work with that system, and the plant cannabinoids also work with that system. So there are times in our life when we're not making enough of our own endogenous cannabinoids, so we need to supplement with the plant cannabinoids to help with inflammation and pain relief and anxiety relief or nausea if you're going through chemotherapy. So we can always bring those plant cannabinoids in to supplement our own system to bring balance back to it. Now what's really important here is you don't want to over supplement with the plant cannabinoids, because then our body gets a little lazy and it decides not to make its own endogenous cannabinoids, and we don't want that to happen. What we're looking for in this journey with cannabis medicine is for the body and the plant to work together synergistically. Now, when you first start cannabis, there's a period of time where it's called upregulation, where you have to build more of those receptors I talked about earlier. Think of the receptors as a lock. And the cannabinoids, the ones we make ourselves, and the plant cannabinoids, they're the key that unlocks that lock. And when that receptor can be opened up, then that's when the magic starts to happen. That's when you get pain relief and you get nausea relief and symptom relief in general. The first few days, you need to build up more receptors in your body. And that can take anywhere from 3 to 5 days. So if you don't feel anything at first, that's okay. We don't mind that at all because that's normal. Your body's got to build those receptors up. Now, for some conditions, you're going to see relief sooner, and other conditions might take a longer time for you to see relief. When it comes to building up receptors in your body, there's a difference between men and women. Women have a tendency to build receptors a lot faster, and we seem to be a bit more sensitive to THC. So these cannabinoids that we've just learned about, they're created in the resin glands, the flower of the plant. There's another component that's made in those resin glands too, and those are called terpenes. Terpenes are the aromatic component of a plant, and they have wonderful medicinal benefits. Every plant has terpenes. When you go into a pine forest or you bring a live Christmas tree into your house and you have that wonderful smell, that comes from the terpene pinene. It's also found in the cannabis plant. Pinene is a great bronchodilator, helps you breathe a little bit better, helps with the short-term memory loss you get from taking THC. Or think of lavender. If you go out into a field of lavender, that smell, it's so stress relieving, that comes from the terpene linalool. Well, that's found in the cannabis plant also. So one thing you'll notice on all of our flower products that we have here in Verdes, we will list the top 2 terpenes because we test for terpenes. It's not required for us to do that, but we know what a benefit knowing those terpenes are and the way that we can guide you to help you the most with the plant. You can always look for those. If you come in and say, oh, Kelly, I really need to get to sleep tonight, I'm going to go look at my strains, and I'm going to look for strains that are high in humulene, because humulene is a really good terpene to help you sleep at night. Or I'm going to look for strains that are high in neurolidol. That's another great terpene to help you sleep at night. You come in, say you're an MS patient and you've got really bad muscle spasms, then we're going to look for strains that are high in the terpene myrcene, because that's one of the things it does absolutely best, is help with those muscle spasms. So these are ways that all the customer service representatives behind the counter can help guide you on your journey. They can look at these things and teach you about it and help you find the best symptom relief you can. Now, to get the best benefit of the terpenes, you're going to want to use your cannabis in the way it looks closest to nature. So that means either smoking the flower or vaporizing it. Because once we have to extract the oils from the flower to make other products, we lose those terpenes. They're very fragile. If you want the benefit of the terpenes and they interest you, then we can definitely talk to you about smoking the product, inhaling it, or definitely using a flower vaporizer, which is really much better for your lungs in the long run. So we've got the terpenes and the cannabinoids you've learned about, and they're made in those beautiful resin glands of the flower product. Those are the things that are important to you to help you on this cannabis journey. So now Rachel's going to go into a lot of the benefits and the different delivery systems that you can use with medical cannabis.
So you'll see sleep is at the very top of this list with pain underneath it. And what we find is that sleep can be like chasing a rainbow. People come in and they get a really good night's sleep after they try a product, and then a couple nights later, they find that it's not as effective anymore. So working with a trained customer service representative can help you find the right amount of product that allows you to get the rest that you need without over-medicating to the point where we build a tolerance and then you have to chase it night after night after night, which can be really costly as well. When it comes to pain, as Kelly mentioned earlier, THC seems to be more effective than CBD alone. So if you come to us and you say, I don't want any type of intoxication, but I really want you to take my level 8 pain down to a level 2, it might be unrealistic. And we're gonna need to have that conversation at the counter with you. Sometimes partnering CBD with THC can be more effective for pain management. So if you do want some pain management and you're not interested in any type of intoxication, there are some options where we can use raw THC products to give you some pain management without the risk of intoxication. And when we're talking about intoxication, we're talking more about the way it feels when you drink a glass of wine. We don't want to knock you out the way pharmaceutical pain medication works. We want you to stay actively engaged in your life, and we want this to be a supplement that helps you participate in life, not puts you on the couch for the rest of the day. If you see at the bottom of this slide, we talk about wellness, such as enhancing the quality of your life. I want to pay particular attention to this point right now. A lot of people don't understand or appreciate the value of just feeling better. Getting down on the floor with your kids and playing in the living room, having a positive interaction at the dinner table with your family members when you might otherwise lose your patience because your pain is so out of control, or allowing the anxiety to become so overwhelming that you don't actually want to leave the house. Well, enhancing the quality of your life has a true value to you as a human. And I want to encourage people to come in and try products that just make you feel better, because there's value in that for all humans. Let's talk now about how to design a cannabis program that you can help us with the information you bring into our dispensary, and how we're going to digest that information with you in order to create a care plan that really works for you for the long run. So first, it's very important that you come in with a goal in mind. So as you're driving into the dispensary, you're thinking, what's the one thing I want to get from this experience today? And maybe that one thing is back pain. We want to reduce the back pain. Maybe it's that I really want to be able to have dinner with my in-laws this Sunday night without blowing off the top and becoming impatient at the dinner table. Whatever that is, you need to come to the counter and express that so that we can find the right product for you. It's not enough to just say, what's good for pain or what can help me sleep. We need a little bit more detail, and that's up to us to pull out of you. So be prepared for a couple questions. You come up to the counter and you meet with Kelly and you say, I just want to sleep. She's going to ask you some questions about whether or not you're having a hard time falling asleep, or are you having a hard time staying asleep? And if the answer is both, that's okay too. So when you're at this counter, we're going to ask you the right questions so that we point you to the right products. Earlier, Kelly mentioned that sometimes it takes experimentation and patience on your part to try different products. But we're here to reduce that learning curve. And by asking you the right questions, we can help point you to products that are going to save you money and reduce the amount of consumption that's necessary to get that goal met. So that's your first job of homework, is as you're driving into the store, really think about what it is you're looking to achieve and be prepared to have that conversation with us. Second, be honest about what delivery system you feel the most comfortable with. And we're going to talk about different delivery methods in our next slide. But if you're not comfortable inhaling something, it's okay to be honest with us about that. If you're not okay eating something, which would be taking an edible, it's okay to say that as well. The last thing we want to do is send you home with a product that you're just going to put in the medicine cabinet and never use because you're not comfortable trying it. So this is a safe space for you to divulge where your comfort level is. Second is we need to know about your budget. And that we need you to be honest with about too, because this is going to be an ongoing regimen. And if your budget is $30 a month, then we need to find products that continuously supply you with the comfort that you need at a $30 a month cadence. If we don't know that, we could sell you too many products and then it's not sustainable for you. So really be honest with us, and we'll be honest right back as to whether or not that's a realistic goal or not, and how we can get you what you need so that you have longevity of care. Then we want to talk about your lifestyle. And your lifestyle blends into whether or not you need a fast-acting product or something that's more longer lasting. And the easy example of this is the falling asleep versus staying asleep. So in this situation, if you're having a difficult time staying asleep, then we need to understand whether or not we can give you an edible that works on a longer period of time. So it's about 6 to 8 hours of symptom management that it could keep you asleep for. But if you need to be up at 5 in the morning and jump in a truck, and that's what you do for your living, then we need to understand the limitations of you possibly feeling groggy in the mornings. Another example of this is that if you're the mom that has to pick up your kiddos at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and shuttle them around town, we can't give you an edible at noon. That would put you and your family at risk if you're driving around town feeling slightly intoxicated or affected. So then we want to talk about using more fast-acting, shorter-lasting products. So this is where lifestyle really matters, what your expectations are and what you want to achieve with these products. On this slide, we're going to talk a little bit about the different delivery methods, how they're used, and why we might pick or why we might point you towards one product over another. You see everything up here from candy to oils, tinctures and inhalants. And I'm going to call what you might call smokables, I'm going to call them inhalants. Sometimes we're smoking something when we're inhaling it, and other times we're not. And the difference is whether or not we're vaporizing that product or combusting it. And we'll talk about that on a slide specific to inhalants. But you can see here that there's a large variety, and each one of these products serves a different purpose, and it also goes after a different type of condition or a different type of symptom management. So let's take a look at each one of these individually. So on this slide, we're talking about inhalants. At the top of the slide, you'll see a glass pipe. That glass pipe is something that we might be more familiar with through the media or our own previous experiences, where you fill it with the flower material, light it on fire, and then we're inhaling smoke. Individuals who are used to using cannabis in this way can be really tricky to convert to other types of inhalants. Those other types of inhalants are called vaporizers. And vaporizing can also mean the flower. You'll see a black, on this slide, a black cylinder that's on the bottom. That cylinder is an electric vaporizer. It, just like the pipe, takes flower. So we put the flower material into it, we turn it on, and then what comes out is just water vapor. So we're not inhaling smoke. And that means that it feels a bit more mellow. It's not that 1-2 punch that comes with smoking, but it allows you to get more of the medicinal properties, and it's much healthier. The reason that we feel the big effect of a smokable is because that smoke that we're inhaling alone, just the smoke, makes our brains feel kind of foggy and fuzzy. And that has nothing to do with the medicine that's in the plant material itself. So I really want to recommend, if you're new to cannabis, you let us talk to you about a vaporizer before you get used to smoking. If you're used to smoking, it's hard to convert you to a vaporizer. If you are new, then it's easier for us to get you accustomed to a vaporizer without you missing the effects of the smoke. Because again, smoking it feels more powerful, even though it's a false sense of power and a false sense of potency. So as we go down the list, we have other types of vaporizers, and that you might be a little bit more familiar with in the oil form. You see on this slide a little cylinder that's kind of clear looking, and that has extracted oils in it. It goes on a battery that heats up, and a person inhales the vapor from that oil. Both types of vaporization are much healthier for a patient than inhaling the cannabis smoke by lighting it on fire. We can show you all of these different options at the counter. The value of an inhalant is many-fold. One is that it works much faster, almost instantaneously. The other value is that it's out of the body faster. So it has a half-life of about 1 to 2 hours, which means about 3 hours later, you're no longer feeling the effect. And so your brain is not foggy anymore and is able to go and participate in the life that you intended for yourself, whether it's driving to the grocery store or taking care of household chores, making a meal for your family, whatever that is. By it moving out of your system a little bit faster, it gives you a lot more flexibility and options throughout your day. Some of you might be aware of vaporized oil from the media. It was a hard year in 2019 and 2020 for vaporized products in general. A lot of the problems were coming from the tobacco industry and flavorings that have been added into different products, as well as vitamin E acetate. Now, I can't speak to whether or not the FDA has clearly identified this as the risk, but they have been able to identify that we're not seeing the same type of problems and risks that we saw last year in products that just have pure THC or CBD oil in them. At the Verdes Foundation, we commit to putting absolutely no additional additives into any of our vaporized products, so that we can do the most to protect your health 100% of the time. The only additive that we put into our oils is natural terpenes, which Kelly spoke about earlier, in order to give you an added symptom relief without having to consume more and more and more THC. So the benefits of inhalants include the fact that they have an immediate effect. If somebody is nauseated right now, they can get nausea relief by using an inhalant and in real time having symptom relief. They're not waiting on an edible to kick in or trying to eat something when they're already nauseated. It typically works within 15 minutes to 30 minutes and allows somebody to get on with their life a little faster because it has a shorter half-life. It's out of the body typically within 3 to 4 hours, allowing you to move on with your day in the afternoon or in the morning, depending on when you're consuming this product. It's easy to control the dosing of inhalants. We find that because it gives instant feedback, you're able to tell after 1 or 2 inhalations whether or not that's enough. The difference between an inhalant and an edible is that you take an edible and you sit back and wonder, when are you going to start to feel the effect? On the inhalant, within 30 minutes, you know if you need to consume more or if you should just stop there. Typically, minimal consumption allows for the greatest effect when it comes to inhalants. And by this, because it gives us feedback so quickly, we're able to reduce the amount that we're consuming because we know in real time whether or not we're going to get that symptom management. And then lastly, it's easier to partner around pharmaceuticals. We typically don't want pharmaceuticals and cannabis to be competing in your body for absorption and many other pathways that happen when a pharmaceutical starts to get broken down. So the inhalant allows for a little bit more partnership between the pharmaceutical pill and the inhalant of cannabis and allows those two to work synergistically when possible. Let's move on now and start to talk about edibles. Edibles have a slower onset, typically between 30 minutes and 2 hours. This can be a little challenging for some patients who take it and then they wonder if it's going to kick in and if their pain is going to become managed or if they're going to eventually fall asleep. Whatever it is that they're looking to achieve with this edible, it's not quite as quick. So it can leave us wondering if we need to take more or not. It also has a longer effect. This is a really positive thing if you're looking for to stay asleep for 6 hours. It's really positive if you're a post-surgical pain patient and we want to give you 6 hours of pain relief. It's not as positive if you're looking to get a little bit of help in the morning and still make it to your book club in the afternoon. So that's where we're going to talk again about what your goals are and where your lifestyle expectations live. The liver is what processes the THC when it's in an edible form. And it goes through a second pass in the liver and can be converted into a more psychoactive, meaning more intoxicating form of THC. And that can be really challenging because you can think, I am as high as I want to be. And then it goes through a second pass in the liver and it turns out that you get even a little bit more intoxicated. So as sweet as those cookies look and as benign as they look, they can be more dangerous than the inhalants because you don't know if you're going to have an additional intoxicating effect after an hour or 2 hours of consumption. The other challenge with an edible is the same challenge that we all have with food on any given day. We could eat the same thing 3 days in a row, and one of those days it affects us completely different than the other 2 days. The same is true with edibles. There's a lot happening in the body, and how we metabolize food is deeply affected by the stress that we're under, the environment that we're in, and a lot of things that are happening in our body in that moment. So it's not quite as consistent of an experience. Now, we can help prevent some of these inconsistencies with certain products, and all of that can be discussed at the counter to make sure that we're giving you safe access to quality medicine that is repeatable time and time again. But we want you to be aware that it's slightly more challenging when we're talking about edibles than when we're talking about inhalants. Now we're going to move into tinctures. And even though a tincture is an edible, it's very different than a candy or a chocolate bar or a cookie. See, the oil that's in a tincture is the oil that goes into the cookie. It's what goes into the chocolate bar. So it's the starting material, and it's the easiest for us to get precise every single time because we know how much is consistently available in one drop. Once we put a tablespoon of potent oil into a vat of cookie dough, it is not necessarily homogeneous. So we can get it as close as possible, and man, do we try. We weigh it. We are very precise in our calculations. Every single cookie is weighed before it's baked, and then it is audited randomly to make sure that the potency is within range. And even still, it can be really challenging to get a small amount of oil to homogeneously mix throughout this cookie batter. So we will start new clients on products that are easier for us to make sure are homogeneous. I know that the tincture isn't that sexy, doesn't taste that good, but it is the best place for us to start you so that we know where your dosing tolerance is, and then we can make other recommendations from there. The next best homogeneous product would be the candy because it's easier for us to mix it all in together. Then from there, we find that the gummies are a little bit more versatile and vary a bit in their potency. And then of course, the baked goods like the cookies. Chocolate can be easier for us to also make consistently because it's in a big liquid. And so that vat of liquid is easy to mix and to make sure that we get a homogeneous representation of the cannabis oil. So all of these things can be discussed with a customer service representative once we start with the tincture. We would like to start new patients at a very low dose. If you feel nothing the first day, then we did our job because that gives us a baseline to build on. Once you have too much in your body, we can't take it out. So we'd always rather start with a really small amount and then be able to build on it. And that's called titration, where we increase little bits so that then we find where's the sweet spot between pain management and not creating over intoxication, or anxiety management, or appetite management. Whatever your goal is, we're looking to find that sweet spot. And the tinctures really help us do this. They have an onset of about 15 to 30 minutes, much faster than other types of edibles that have to go into the stomach and be broken down in a digestive process. They last about 4 to 6 hours, so it's a nice little balance between the inhalants and the edibles. They also do get processed some in the liver, but can be pocketed in the mouth for a significant amount of sublingual absorption so that we're not depending all on the stomach and 100% on the liver. And then lastly, as I mentioned, it allows us to bounce up and down because it's a flexible way for us to get you your dosing throughout the day so that you can take smaller amounts in the morning, larger amounts as the day goes on, but it gives you the flexibility to increase or reduce the amount that you're taking so that you keep that power and you can titrate yourself up or down. The last type of application we're going to talk about today is salves. Salves are a topical application that go on the skin. We seem to find the most benefit with topical applications for people who have peripheral neuropathies. And this can be from a large range of conditions that lead to that pins and needles or tingling in their hands, feet, and in distal extremities. So as we get further away from our central nervous system, we typically see more and more of these symptoms. And by putting the salve on this part of the body, we can reduce the symptom of the tingling, the burning, and the discomfort that many patients feel. It doesn't last all day. The benefit is somewhere around a 2-hour window of relief. And it also can be used for muscle pain. We use it on the back. We use it on sore muscles throughout the body. Digestive pain, you get a stomach ache. People who have ongoing gastroenteritis, put it on their stomach and then put a heating pad over. So our salve, our regular salve, is mentholated. It has eucalyptus in it, and that brings blood to the area because we don't have a lot of receptors for cannabis in our skin. And we really have more receptors for THC than we can find for CBD in the skin. So we only make a THC application, and we make it with a real high amount of THC because we need that to be able to be brought into the receptors of the skin and to be able to be used in the body. So we need a lot of it in order for it to be effective. The menthol, the eucalyptus, brings blood to the area, which opens the capillaries and allows it to be more effective. But those of you who have sensitive skin should try the sensitive salve, which does not have the eucalyptus in it and can be a little bit easier to tolerate. And sometimes people feel it can be slightly less effective for pain, but the majority of our sensitive salve users find it to be just as effective because they're more sensitive to begin with. So those of you who do not have a skin sensitivity, we want you to stay with the regular salve. Those with a skin sensitivity really try to use the sensitive salve and to put heat on it in order to help that penetrate through into your muscle, into the nerve, and into the bloodstream. Now, the difference between a topical and any other form of application is that it won't cause psychoactivity. So you won't feel like you drank a glass of wine. You shouldn't feel like you're high or stoned or any of those things on this product. It can give you relief while you're at the office, give you relief while you're out and about without causing any risk for harm or any sort of dissociation that you can feel with other types of products. Some of you might be wondering how to get a medical cannabis card. If you do not yet have a cannabis card, or if yours is expiring and you're looking to renew it, we always ask that you speak to your primary care physician first. It's important, even if they're not going to sign the card, that they know what you're doing and that they're aware of your whole health plan and that they're collaborating with you, because you might be able to reduce certain medications, or you might find that there are contraindications and that when you take cannabis, now you're feeling more of the effects of your other pharmaceuticals. Cannabis is not completely benign, and there are risks associated. And it's very important that you're having those conversations with your providers, whether it's your primary care provider or a specialist. We ask that you start with your primary care provider, and then from there you go and talk to your specialists, so that if your primary care is not willing to sign one of these cards, that maybe your neurologist is, or your oncologist is. So bring this conversation to all of your health team, so that they are A, aware of what you're doing, and B, can support you. If you are looking to get a caregiver card, so let's say that you yourself have a new oncology diagnosis and you're gonna be undergoing chemotherapy and possibly radiation, it's really important to have somebody else in your household who's able to come to the dispensary and get your medication for you. the way that they can at a pharmacy. The difference for us is that this is a Schedule I drug, so you can't just send anybody to a dispensary to pick up your cannabis medicine for you. So the Department of Health has been able to issue caregiver cards. Those caregiver cards, it's singular, so it's one per patient. You'll assign it to one person, and that person will be able to come and make purchases on your behalf. Now, the difference is that it takes a lot longer to get the caregiver card than it does to get the patient card. The Department of Health does not do background checks on patients, but they will do background check on caregivers. So there can be a 3-month turnaround sometimes, depending on what the need is and if it's backed up at the DOH and how quickly they're getting these background checks back. So you want to start that as soon as possible. And what we see a lot is that people wait on this. I'm going to wait and see how I feel. I'm going to start my chemotherapy regimen, and then if I need it, I'll apply for the card. But that can be too long of a lag time. And then we get requests to make accommodations that we can't make because it's against the law. So we can only sell to a patient who has a valid patient card, or to their caregiver who has a valid caregiver card. So my ask of you is that you start that process as soon as possible. It's free, so there's no reason not to have one in case you need it. We have seen a real increase in qualifying conditions in the state of New Mexico. There are now 28 medical conditions that are recognized by the Department of Health for qualifying an individual for medical cannabis. Take a good look at this list. It is also available on the Department of Health website. You can bring this list to your provider when you're having a conversation with them as to how you might be able to be benefited, or which one of these conditions you might be able to qualify for if you're looking to get into this program and to have cannabis be an alternative measure for your wellness. So our parting tips for today, I want to start with just emphasizing again that there's value in feeling well. We are a wellness company, and we are here to support you on the journey of your life. Quality of life matters, and cannabis can really help improve the quality of your life, no matter what your symptoms are and no matter what your goals are. Second, we always want to find the most minimal dose possible for the greatest effect. So we're looking to you to really partner with us on finding where those sweet spots are. If a little is good, a lot is not necessarily better. We are here to support you in creating a safe opportunity for you to find the smallest amount of cannabis to get the greatest amount of effect and benefit. It takes time and it takes experimentation. Again, we're here to lessen that learning curve, but working with us means keeping a journal, jotting it down. We all think that we're going to remember things, and we never do. And one of the negative effects of cannabis is that it can affect our memory. One of the positive effects of cannabis is that it can affect our memory. So if you have a negative experience in your life, cannabis helps that not deeply root and implant so that you then form a PTSD response. Cannabis can help us not form PTSD responses when we have a traumatic event, but it also means that it can make a memory compromised if you're consuming it thinking, I'm going to remember that I felt great, or I'm going to remember that my back pain was only reduced to a 4. So this is an option to journal. This is an opportunity to bring us your subjective information in a way that allows us to tweak your care plan and get you the greatest benefit. Well, thank you for spending so much time with us today. We're really blessed to be part of this journey with you, and we're here to answer your questions as you continue to experiment and to find how medical cannabis can work for you.